Hey everybody, welcome back to Rockies Recap. We're going to start from the top, Thursday Night Football. What a horrible game. Broncos versus Cardinals. We learned quite a bit from this game in regards to the Cardinals. So I'm pretty sure it's safe to say they are officially the worst team this year, and they can go ahead and start preparing for next year's draft. Josh Rosen the rookie quarterback, had 5 giveaways. He fumbled 3 times, lost it on 2 of those fumbles, and also had 3 interceptions to pair with that. He's the first rookie quarterback to throw 2 pick sixes in the first quarter in NFL history. Crazy. The only good thing, honestly, going for the Cardinals, like that sticks out a little bit sometimes, is the defense. Budda Baker and Patrick Peterson at the helm of that. Bynes also having some good weeks. They're leading the teams in tackles in this game. Patrick Peterson had the interception, and just always, as usual, great in coverage. There was rumors of him demanding to be traded. Those were put to rest by his statement, but can we blame him if he wants to go somewhere else? I sure don't. But it sounds like he's here to stay and weather the storm. That offensive performance was so bad Thursday night that the offensive coordinator, McCoy, was fired Friday morning. And it's definitely, like I said, going to be a very long year for the Arizona Cardinals. As far as the Denver Broncos are concerned, Emmanuel Sanders was the only thing exciting going on in this sad game. He was 6 receptions, 102 yards, 1 touchdown, and also an amazing throwing touchdown. Pass to Courtland Sutton. We will definitely see a highlight of that later at the end of this. He now is the 3rd receiver to record a throwing touchdown this season, with Wilson and Odell Beckham being the other 2. So pretty cool to see all these little trick plays taking place. Phillip Lindsay, the rookie, as well, had a great game. He was 14 carries, 90 yards, and a touchdown. Of course, Von Miller and Chubb, the duo, going crazy. They both had, Von Miller had 2 forced fumbles and recovered 1, and Chubb had 1 forced fumble, and they both recorded 2 sacks. So they definitely went off. They're actually the best. They have the most sacks by a duo this season, Chubb and Miller. So they're doing their thing, continued this week. As far as in coverage, Harris, Roby, and Davis had interceptions in this game as well. Harris and Davis having 2 of those pick sixes, and they also led the team in tackles. A fun fact that I thought was pretty interesting is Patrick Peterson is the 2nd DB to start his career with at least 7 straight Pro Bowls. And Miller and Patrick Peterson were both drafted top 5 in the 2011 draft. And since then, the only defensive player that has more Pro Bowl selections than Miller, which is 6, is Patrick Peterson. So this was like a battle of the Pro Bowl streak with guys. And obviously, Patrick can only do so much. But Miller went off, and even Patrick went off. So they're showing why they're Pro Bowl selected every single year. Next game, Chargers versus Titans. This was the international game of the week. Honestly, it just boiled down to the Titans gambling for the 2-point conversion to go for the win instead of a tie with the point after attempt. It was unsuccessful conversion, and the Chargers ended up winning. I mean, I definitely give credit to the coaching staff for their boldness and aggressiveness and trying to just go ahead and seal the win. However, it doesn't always work out in your favor, so that's part of the gambling. Mariota, other than his first career red zone interception just before the half, he did do pretty well. He has thrown 41 touchdown passes without an interception in the red zone, which is pretty impressive. Mariota still kept his team in the game second half, fighting back for the comeback. And Dion Lewis was a huge part of that, running very nicely and very hard. We'll see some highlights of his running. He was 13 carries, 91 rushing yards, and 6 receptions, 64 receiving yards, 155 total for the day. Tajay Sharp also had a nice performance, 7 receptions, 101 yards. And honestly, what it boils down to with these Titans is they have been lacking consistency all year. When they get a hold of that, they will definitely be worthy of contention talk. But for now, they got to get consistent. But all the credit in the world to the Chargers, continuing to play strong through this week. Rivers to William connection continuing to be something impressive to watch. They started the game with the first play being a 75-yard touchdown pass from Rivers to Williams, which was nice. We'll see a little clip of that. Basically, Rivers just exploited the busts and coverage down the field the whole game. 50% of his passing yards came on 3 of 26 of his throws. 50% of his yards came on 3 passes, basically, is what that's saying. He finished 19 of 26 for the day, 306 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Tyrell Williams, like I said, another great week for him. 4 receptions, 118 yards, and a touchdown. And he caught all 4 of his targets, so reliable. The Chargers wide receiving corps has played a key role in the victory with this trio of Williams, Keenan Allen, and Mike Williams, combining for 245 receiving yards this game. The first win without Melvin Gordon since being drafted in 2015. I thought that was pretty interesting. Also, defensively, Melvin Ingram had a strong defensive performance. Still lots of missed tackles for the Chargers as a defensive whole, though, but I'm sure they will wrap that up and get it together. Still impressed with the way the Chargers have been looking. Going forward, Patriots versus Bears, a very close one, and the first road win of the season for the Patriots. A couple of things that stuck out to me were the Patterson kickoff return for the 95-yard touchdown. This is his 6th kickoff return for a touchdown in his career, which is 4 more than the next closest player. That's pretty impressive. So he'll definitely make the highlight, and we'll mention him again later. But as far as Patriots go, some issues with ball security for sure between him and Michel, although he redeemed himself. There's 2 fumbles between the two. Michel and Gronk were both out this game, so you would think that would have given Chicago a chance to attack and come out with the win. But Brady says not today. He was 25 of 36, 277 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did have 1 interception, but James White just continues to deliver and continues to carry the team when he needs to, and when he's called upon, he delivers. He had 6 receiving touchdowns this season already. He finished with 97 total yards and 2 touchdowns on this game. Josh Gordon was also a big, huge target today. He converted a huge 4th down with a nice grab, losing his helmet. We'll see a clip of that. That was pretty impressive. He finished the day with 4 receptions, 100 yards. Hightower on special teams blocking the punt, recovered by Van Noy for the touchdown. That was huge. We'll definitely see a highlight of that as well. That was New England's first touchdown like that since 1996, the blocked punt with the scoop score touchdown. So that was pretty interesting. I'm surprised that's the case. New England's always been pretty dominant on defense. But that's the first time that their special team has scored 2 touchdowns in the same game since 2010. So pretty cool to see the special teams stepping up for the Patriots as they've struggled in finding their identity this season. It seems like they're back in full force all around the game. Chung and Van Noy leading in tackles. The defense definitely quieted down Tariq Cohen, who's been kind of going off on some teams. He was only 83 total yards for the day, which is huge because, he's big in receiving and rushing, and he was just 83 total. Jonathan Jones had a great interception as well for the Patriots, along with J.C. Jackson had another interception. New England finished up with 38 points, which is their 4th consecutive game doing so. This is a new franchise record. So they had a very good performance and showing that they are here and not going anywhere, and the Patriots are back, because we all kind of were skeptical at the beginning of the season. But it's looking like we have to worry about them. But for as far as Chicago is concerned, you got to give them credit for hanging in there. Now, granted, like I said, Michel and Gronk were out, so it wasn't an evenly yoked type of team. But they also had, without Khalil Mack really being a factor, because he's harboring injury. So it was somewhat equally yoked, but you have to give him props for hanging in there, honestly. They just didn't capitalize on opportunities that they had. Like I said, with Gronk and Michel both being out, there should have been no excuse to come out with this win. Edelman fumbles the punt right before the half. The Bears definitely should have been all over that. That would have been an opportunity that was missed. But Mitchell Trubisky definitely continues to hurt people with his legs. He had a crazy running, scrambling play for a touchdown. He was 81 yards rushing for the day. That's the 2nd most by a quarterback in the Belichick era that has been allowed. And I think the first time was Tim Tebow, and he had like 93 yards in 2011. So Trubisky killing him with the legs. But like I said, he's still turning the ball over. 2 interceptions. He had missed targets, erratic throwing all game. Trey Burton definitely put on a show, though. He finished 9 receptions, 126 yards, and a touchdown. Also, Adrian Amos rips the ball into Fuller's hand for an interception. That was impressive on defense. Danny Trevathan with 10 tackles in the game, looking good. The McAtap, like I said, he's just been quiet, and I can't even give Patriots the credit for it because he's been pretty much harboring injury. And I feel like at this point, they probably should go ahead and rest him up so that we can get him back in full force, because that is a huge part of their team. The defense allowed 69 points in the last 2 games between the Dolphins and the Patriots. So something's got to give on this defense that we know can be really strong. I'm not going to lie, though. That miracle prayer Hail Mary of a throw by Trubisky at the end of the game to White was actually caught in the last second, but he was held just short of the touchdown at the 1. That was crazy. Like, what are the odds that, like, he gets it and then, like, he's literally, like, right there, but the freaking New England, like, really legitly held him. There was, like, 5-6 guys swarming to make that stop. So that was pretty amazing at the end of regulation to see, and also heartbreaking at the same time, depending on what team you're going for. But anyways, next game, Colts versus Bills. There was 220 rushing yards, which was the most by Indianapolis Colts since 2007. They went off on the ground. Andrew Luck was efficient with his dropbacks, getting the ball out underneath to playmakers and avoiding big mistakes, which has pretty much been plaguing him this year a little bit. He finished 17 of 23, 156 yards, and 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Very efficient. Andrew Luck has 15 passing touchdowns in his last 4 games. That's more than the Cardinals, Titans, and the Bills have combined for this season. Crazy. Andrew Luck has 1+ passing touchdown in 30 straight games, which is the longest active streak in the NFL. Also, as far as, like I said, they beat him on the ground. All 3 backs, Mike Hines and Wilkins, all averaged 6 yards per carry today. Marlon Mack was amazing. He stood out the most. 19 carries, 126 yards, and 1 touchdown. 159 total yards for the day. That is the most by a Colts running back since 2011. And we'll definitely see some highlights of his running. He was looking nice out there. But there's really, honestly, still nobody that's standing out as a wide receiver threat or go-to. I mean, Hilton was back. He had 4 receptions for 25 yards and 2 touchdowns. So nothing super long, but he was a target and he was reliable, I guess you could say. Nice to have him back out there. But the Colts defense covered really well and rallied to the ball. They limited yardage on dump-off and screen passes, which could have been ugly. Mike Mitchell with the strip fumble and an interception, doing good in his new team, looking good in that scheme. As far as the Bills are concerned, what a blowout. Derek Anderson at quarterback for the Bills, okay? And he looked like he was fresh off the streets, like playing horribly. 3 interceptions, lost fumble. He has more career interceptions, which is 63, than passing touchdowns, which is 60. That's ridiculous. How is he even getting a shot to start and carry a team? And Kaepernick is still sitting on a couch waiting for a call. I have a serious problem with that. BS. Anyways, going forward, Ivory and Murphy definitely still tried to carry the weight and do the best that they could on the ground. With McCoy being out, they combined for 134 yards on the ground. The Bills' D just didn't do much better to attempt to bail out the quarterback or their team in general. They were horrible in all phases of the game. They must have forgotten to board the plane because it was just ugly. Okay, amazing to me that, like I said, people are still in desperate situations at the position of quarterback, and like I said, Kaepernick is not being called upon. Like, somebody like Derek Anderson is getting a shot, though. Okay. Anyways, next game, Texans versus Jaguars. This is the Texans' 4th straight win, and they are on fire. I called it before Deshaun Watson got hurt last year that they are a team to look out for sure. I thought if Deshaun would have never went down last year, they were going to be deep in the postseason. And I have a feeling, watch out, they might be climbing their way this year again. Been a slow start, but I think they're getting there. Also, just a worthy mention, Dre Hall back, with the team to start, and he was in remission from cancer over the summer. Happy to see that. Prayers to him. Hope he continues a successful and healthy remission and no longer has to deal with that. Deshaun Watson is tied for the 2nd most touchdowns, 32, in his first 14 career games since 1970. Wow, check him out. Only Kurt Warner had 35, which was a little bit more. But I'm pretty sure he's on track to probably beat that. DeAndre Hopkins, man, I tell you what, I just thoroughly, besides Patrick Mahomes, thoroughly enjoy watching him. He is continuing to prove that he is very hard to cover. He had a nice sideline grab, one-handed Hopkins at the sideline. Hopkins versus Ramsey matchup was funny to watch. Hopkins definitely won on that. Ramsey did okay for, considering that Hopkins is a savage. But he did somewhat limit him. I mean, Hopkins only had 3 receptions for 50 yards and a touchdown, which could have been way more as far as yards are concerned. But he still got 3 for 50, so that is long catches, and he did get a touchdown. Lamar Miller was 22 carries, 100 yards and a touchdown for the day. Welcome back to him as well. Tyrann Mathieu, LSU, had a very huge key interception. Honey Badger is back in full attack, motivating that team as a veteran. I really enjoy seeing that. Marcellus with the strip sack, 2 forced fumbles. Clowney with 7 tackles, and K-Jack with fumble recoveries. Zach Cunningham led the team in tackles, 8, and a forced fumble. Their defense is going off. They are solid, and as long as their offense continues to click and Deshaun's consistent, and Hopkins, we already know, is game time, showtime, I'm telling you, watch out for this team. As far as the Jaguars are concerned, there is a lot to be addressed here. Bortles is benched. He had 2 lost fumbles, 1 interception, dropped ball by receivers too as well, though. And Cody Kessler is put in. Again, people, like, how are they giving these types of people opportunities to play in such a dire need in situations like the fact that the Jaguars are actual contenders when they have a solid defense when they show up? I think they're just at this point frustrated. But they're in a position talent-wise where if you plug in the right quarterback, you are going to contend. So what is the deal? Call Cap up. It's driving me crazy. He could easily come in for some of these teams that need a quarterback and immediately make a difference and help their team get to where they need to be for sure. They've definitely got to address this quarterback issue before the trade deadline, in my opinion, even though they signed him with his new contract and big money. It ain't working out. Leonard Fournette's absence is definitely further hurting them and damaging their offense. They have lost their identity almost, like it feels like. To me, that's what it seems as though. The Jaguars also, defensively, like we know, have always been great, but they've allowed 19 points per game in the first half over their last 3 games. They've allowed 6.2 points per game in the first half of their previous 20 games. So that just shows the 6.2 points per game in the first half of their previous 20. That's good stuff. But in their last 3 games, 19 points per game in the first half. Huge difference. Big jump. That's almost 3 times. Something's going on there. They've got to turn this team around because they have plenty of talent to do what they need to do if they could plug in the right positions. Lions versus Dolphins. Next game. Kerryon Johnson, the rookie, going off again with another big day. Hit 21 touches, 179 yards. He found open space and showed he's very nice in bursts and he's very elusive in the open field, forcing missed tackles. He has great yards after contact. The best day running the ball since the Barry Sanders era. 248 yards, the best since 97. As far as running as a group, Kerryon Johnson's 71-yard rush was the longest by a Lions running back since 2011. And Blunt also showing up with 50 yards and a touchdown as well. Matt Stafford played mistake-free football, which was huge and key for him because he's kind of been plagued with that this year. He had 18 of 22, 217 yards and 2 touchdowns. Balance has been established offensively here in Detroit, and it's definitely making a solid show as far as like what their potential is. They generated 24 first downs with 8.2 average yards per play on 56 snaps. They are clicking for sure. Defensively, Ricky Jean-Francois, LSU, completely defeated the Miami offensive line, splitting double teams, sacking, going off. Very impressive performance by him. As far as Miami's concerned, their O-line, outside of Tunsil, honestly just allowed way too many pressures, and Osweiler really never had a chance at anything. He never had a clean pocket. He was 22 of 31, 239 yards, 2 touchdowns for the day. Kenyon Drake was 6 with 72 yards and a touchdown. Kiko Alonso had a really bad game, and that definitely didn't help matters because he's usually very solid in double-digit tackles. He's usually a big force on the defense, so they felt that. Detroit only punted once and scored on all 4 second-half possessions. That's huge. Your defense has got to step up. With the Stills and Wilson injured, it's going to be a huge miss for Miami because that was who was their key receivers, and Parker was like listed inactive, and issues were going on behind the scenes with that. So I don't know what they're going to do, but somebody's got to step up at the wide receiver position because they don't have as many targets with Wilson and Stills being out. Next game, Vikings versus Jets. Cousins struggled to get into rhythm in the first half, but he put together a very impressive 9-play, 74-yard drive in the second half that demonstrated why he is among the NFL leaders in completion percentage, passing yards, touchdown-interception ratio, and 300-yard games. What a great performance. Adam Thielen again eclipsed 100 yards in 7 straight games. That ties an NFL record. And I'm pretty sure he's going to be continuing this and breaking records. Latavius Murray also had a great game. He continued to help balance the offense. He had 69 yards. The defensive front played very well against the run, limiting the Jets to only 71 yards, which we know Isaiah Crowell can get loose on you. So to be able to limit him to not pretty much nothing is a big deal. 3 interceptions. There was 12 passes defended. Secondary played very tight coverage. Rhodes and Barr left the game with injury, and they still managed to be dominant on defense. That's definitely something to monitor going forward, though, with Barr and Rhodes being out and Saints coming to town. Watch out for my Saints now. We will not have another repeat of last year. Just know that. Harrison Smith with a 52-yard interception return off Rhodes' deflection. Very impressive. Hill he had 2 kickoff returns for 57 yards, 1 interception, 2 tackles, and 2 pass defense. Very good performance from Hill in all facets of the game. As far as the Jets are concerned, Darnold just really struggled with accuracy. His completion percentage was 40% all game. The O-line gave him time to pass, but it just wasn't, they didn't have a great running game going on, so it just didn't open up much else. He was 17 of 42. 17 of 42, 206 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions, and a fumble. I mean, they're hurt at the wide receiver position. They may need to address this before the deadline as well. Jamal Adams laid a couple of big hits on the Vikings and impressed in the run defense. He finished with 3 tackles for a loss and 9 total tackles. LSU, we out here no matter what, even when the team struggles. Look at Patrick Peterson, look at Jamal Adams. We gonna still show up and shine regardless. Anyways, moving forward, Panthers versus Eagles. Panthers scored 21 unanswered points in the 4th quarter on the road for the win. Very impressive performance. Cam Newton and the offense were completely silenced in the first 3 quarters. 35 yards only in the first half for offense. Then it came alive late. He definitely started getting more time in the pocket, which led to more accurate throws. That led them to the comeback victory. They were resilient and persistent. They overcame a 17-point deficit, making the largest 4th quarter comeback in franchise history. The first 5 possessions were 5 punts, and the last 3 possessions were 3 touchdowns. Huge turnaround. A very impressive comeback for the Panthers. In the 4th quarter alone, Newton completed 16 of 22 passes for 201 yards and 2 touchdowns with 131 passer rating. And his biggest play occurred on the game-winning drive, facing 4th and 10 with 2 minutes remaining in the game. Newton displayed poise while facing the Eagles' pass rush before connecting with wide receiver Torrey Smith for a 35-yard gain. Newton capped off the drive with a 1-yard touchdown pass to Greg Olsen and finished the game completing 25 of 39 passes for 269 yards and 2 touchdowns, adding 49 yards rushing on 7 carries. Newton now has 2+ passing touchdowns in 5 straight games, the longest career streak of his career. Also, he has 40+ rushing yards in 7 of the last 8 road games. That's pretty impressive, definitely. They definitely went to abandoning the run late in the game. It just wasn't working. McCaffrey wasn't cutting. The O-line was struggling with the Eagles' defensive front, so abandoning that helped them out, making adjustments, which they did. Funchess still had a good game, 6 receptions, 62 yards, and a double move, 18-yard touchdown. He has a receiving touchdown in 4 of the 5 last road games, so they're pretty impressive on the road. Besides McCaffrey, I don't think he has a rushing touchdown on the road yet this year in his career period, which is kind of surprising. But Funchess and Cam Newton, good on the road, so that's good news to see. Kuechly and Davis were effective in all phases of the defense. Definitely showed up towards the end of the game. At first, they were a little slow as well. They were consistently around the ball. 4 sacks, 6 quarterback hits, sacked fumble to ice the game. Kuechly one more time. Kuechly led the team with tackles, 13 total, 1 sack, 4 tackles for a loss, and Reed had 9 total tackles as well and almost had an interception. So he's going to be coming back in savage mode into the league. Welcome back again to Eric Reed, his brother continuing to shine as a rookie as well with the Texans. Anyways, as far as the Eagles are concerned this game, Wentz actually had a good game, but the O-line kind of struggled a little bit. There was no run game at all. Through the first 3 quarters, they were 23 of 27, 281 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But then he finished 30 of 37, 310 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Like I said, pretty solid performance, but they just couldn't get the job done. Ertz had a great game, 9 receptions, 138 yards. 57 receptions in 7 games which is the most receptions through 7 games of a season by any tight end in NFL history. So shout out to Ertz. We see you doing your thing, that's for sure. Alshon Jeffrey continuing to be clutch in the receiving game. Really nice grabs. 7 receptions, 88 yards, and a touchdown. We'll definitely see some highlights of him. Fletcher Cox and Michael Bennett were solid for the first 3 quarters on pressures, but then they apparently just got gassed towards the end of the game in the 4th quarter when the Panthers really dialed it up and turned into a hurry offense. So that's really the difference in this game. There was definitely a tough game in the secondary for the Eagles as well. That was the most exposed when the pressures up front were let up, and they took over and won the game, basically. There was some drama going on with Reed charging the field to address Malcolm Jenkins. They got some kind of beef going on. I absolutely adore Eric Reed and everything that Kaepernick and Eric Reed stand for, and will always support anything they do. I feel like there's a time and a place for certain things, and I didn't like the way he charged the field at the coin toss to address Malcolm Jenkins. I feel like that could have waited or take it out on the field, even though I guess they can't because they're both defense, but you know what I'm saying? That's one thing I definitely just didn't really agree on. But anyways, next game, Bucks versus Browns. Overtime. Man, Cleveland has gone to overtime in 4 of their 7 last games. That's the highest since 74. Crazy. Nick Chubb with 18 carries, the most in his career, with Carlos Hyde now being drafted down low to Jacksonville. He had a nice career high of 18 carries, decent debut as a starter. He had 18 carries, 80 yards, and a touchdown. It was just inconsistent offensive play that plagued the Browns, honestly. The O-line wasn't really that great. They were beat up at receiver. Down the stretch, they were better offensively, and Baker Mayfield tried to rally a game to come and get their team to win. He finished with 23 of 34, 215 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Jarvis Landry, LSU, definitely had a great game with 10 receptions, 97 yards, and a really nice game-tying touchdown grab. And Njoku as well with some really nice grabs and a touchdown. He finished 4 with 52 yards and a touchdown. Myles Garrett was a defensive force with 2 sacks, 1 strip sack, and a forced fumble. Denzel Ward, he's still showing out, played pretty solid in coverage and run defense. He broke up 2 passes. Going into this game, he's ranked 8th among all cornerbacks with 8 forced incompletions behind, I forget who. Randall and Bodie Calhoun led the team with tackles 11 and 10, both in double-digit tackles. Christian Kirksey recovered the fumble and had an interception and 7 tackles. So, defense was definitely clicking for the Browns, but offensively, they just weren't consistent enough to get the job done. So the Bucks did what they had to do, because even for Winston, it wasn't super consistent. You know, it was definitely an awful day passing the ball for Winston. It just wasn't his best day. On the ground, he had a very solid performance, though, gaining 57 yards on 7 scrambles, picking up either a first down or a touchdown on 5 of them. So that was impressive in that regard. He finished 32 of 52, 365 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, but he did have 55 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. Winston has passed 350 passing yards in 4 straight games, and only the 3rd person to do that. That's Breeze and Stafford. Pass protection from the O-line was pretty good, only pressured on 25% of his 68 dropbacks, but they did fumble twice, so you got to take care of the ball. Mike Evans still being solid. He had 7 receptions, 107 yards. They had 3 receivers over 50, so spreading the ball out, that's a good look. For the most part, the defense held the Browns' passing offense in check. They allowed only 2 passes to go for 20-plus yards, but kept short in front. They kept everything short in front and made tackles after the catch, which was impressive, and the run defense was really good. David and Alexander at the helm of that. Prayers to Quan Alexander, LSU. He's a dog. He'll be back, but they will definitely be missing him and his presence on that defense. Chandler Cannizzaro with a 59-yard field goal to win it in overtime off a fumbled punt return by Jabril Peppers. After missing what would have been, honestly, a game-winning field goal in regulation, he comes back to hit the longest game-winning field goal in overtime since 1974. Very impressive. He's a special teams player of the week for me, for sure. Next game, Saints versus Ravens. Very impressive road win for the Saints. I couldn't be more proud of them. They're the top scoring. This was like the top scoring offense versus the top defense, basically. And it was pretty interesting to watch because, you know, the Ravens were coming off 11-sack game last week. So I was kind of scared, honestly. But we stood strong. Tucker missed. What it really boiled down to is the kicker, Tucker, missed his first ever career point after attempt. He was 222 of 222 attempts. Solid. And he missed his first point after attempt in this game in the last second of the game, and that's why they pretty much lost the game. Although we deserved it, but anyways. Flacco did his best. He did pretty well. He was 23 of 39, 279 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, so no mistakes there for him. However, Willie Snead was huge with the drops, only getting 3 of his 7 targets, and he missed huge 4th down conversions late in the game. And it was against his old team, so I don't know if we made him nervous or what, but it was not his day. And Crabtree, previously plagued with drops, continued to show this week that he's going to not drop and have some nice grabs. John Brown had a very impressive performance, 7 receptions, 134 yards, and 1 touchdown. Honestly, the Ravens just have a bad habit of following up like really big wins with a disappointing loss. I've noticed that's their trend this year. So the Ravens defense, like I said, was coming off a franchise high 11 sacks last game, but was put in check this game. They only got pressure in 6 of 31 dropbacks this game. They allowed the most points since week 2 game versus the Bengals. They did keep the run game in check a little bit because no one eclipsed 100 yards. But like I said, we handled them. Mosley led the team in tackles with 16 total. That's very impressive. The defense still holds the streak of holding less than 300 passing yards in the last 24 home games, which is very impressive to not allow a team to come in and throw over 300 yards in the last 24 home games. That's pretty nice. But prior to this game, the Ravens haven't allowed second half touchdown. The Saints put up 2 in the second half, in the 4th quarter alone. They also haven't allowed a passing touchdown at home this season, and the only team to do so at home until now, but we put it up on them. So we broke all that. Honestly, they really, in my opinion, and I mean, I know like Tucker's like perfect and solid in kicking, but maybe they should have gambled going for 2 because honestly, the Saints defense was super shaky all game. So, I mean, you went for it on 4th downs other times. Why not just do like a 2-point conversion on a defense where we kind of struggled in the red zone, in my opinion. But let's get to the Saints. Impressive performance in certain aspects of the game. Teron Armstead thoroughly handled veteran Suggs in this one while also putting work on the linebackers in the run game. Breeze was efficient coming back from a 10-point deficit at Baltimore against the NFL's #1 defense. He finished 22 of 30, 212 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He also had joined the 500th career touchdown club with his touchdown to Watson earlier in the game. Drew Brees has completed 170 passes without an interception through the first 7 weeks, the most completions without an interception through 7 weeks since 1970. He now has also a victory against all 32 teams. So he set all kind of records, typical Drew Brees fashion. Every week I feel like he set something. Michael Thomas had a very nice bobbling catch and yards after contact for a very critical 1st down, which we needed in our comeback. Breeze had a nice scrambling on the run throw to Thomas for a 1st down. That was also impressive. A couple of those will be in the highlights at the end of this. Breeze to Thomas, the touchdown in the 4th quarter after going for it on 4th and 1 was impressive. All of those touches were very critical and a very critical point of the game. Thomas ended up with 7 receptions, 69 yards, and a touchdown. Traquan Smith had a very nice tiptoe sideline grab. So a nice look for the rookie, continuing to impress there. Taysom Hill, man, I swear, that's our backup quarterback, but it's like he just continues to produce, and whatever they need or ask, he's super solid, very reliable. I mean, he's coming in on trick plays. He's coming in as a running back. He's coming in as a quarterback. I mean, he's special teams. You name it, fake stuff. I mean, you can't pick up anybody like that off the street. I mean, this guy, I don't know where he came from, but let me tell you what, I am so happy we have him. But anyways, I have a question though. Like, honestly, this is the 2nd week in a row that Lamar has gotten some huge gain or run on a team. And I'm like, he only comes in once a game, maybe. Lamar Jackson, like, it's obvious they're going to go to him and he's going to run. Like, so prepare. Stop it. Like, it's written, like, plain as day to me. Super obvious. But they seem to struggle with understanding that. So I was very upset with us not being able to stop him when he came in and ran and had a rushing touchdown on us. But other than that, the Saints' run defense was actually pretty solid, keeping Collins in check. Also, the last touchdown to Brown at the end of the game was horribly blown coverage. Lots of missed tackles on that last drive. So not the best defensive performance this game. Like I mentioned earlier when I said they maybe should have gambled for the 2-point conversion, we were very shaky. But one who did finally start to show up, Marshon Lattimore, easily had his best game of the season this year. He was targeted 6 times and only allowed 1 catch for 11 yards. He broke up 3 of those 6 targets and could have had 2 picks on the day if it weren't for him dropping them. Big difference in the game. We have missed him. Welcome back, Marshon Lattimore. Next game, Redskins versus Cowboys. Redskins are now in first place in the NFC East. Who would have thought? It was the first time they've been in first place since 2005. The Redskins defense was dominant in all 3 levels of the field, but most notably in the front 7. Kerrigan with multiple pressures and 2 sacks. Allen and Payne were forces in the interior. Kerrigan strip sack led to the Smith scoop and score. Norman and Kerrigan and Swearinger all had forced fumbles. Swearinger with a recovery. Good run defense as well for the Redskins. They kept Zeke in complete check. He only had 34 yards. That's crazy. The Redskins basically have found a formula that works, and it's to have a good, strong defense and a good run game, which they haven't really, they've been struggling to find in the past few years. So Alex Smith, he was pretty uncharacteristic, missing some pretty easy throws. His completion percentage was less than 60%, but when you have Adrian Peterson doing his thing, that's all you need. He eclipsed 100 yards. He would have eclipsed 100 yards, he was right at it if it wasn't for a few penalties that were called back, but he was great on yards after contact per usual. He finished 24 carries, 99 yards, and all of Adrian Peterson's 96-plus yard games for this season have resulted in a win. So AP is like the defining factor, I guess, for the win for them. That's what it seems like. But Bibbs also stood out as far as the running game goes, and he also, steps out as a receiver and does pretty well. So we'll be looking at him becoming a factor. But as far as the Cowboys are concerned, the O-line was completely terrorized by the Redskins front 7. Worst game of Zeke's career. He had a career low 2.3 yards per carry, and yards after contact was 1.7. Dak played well considering all the duress and scrambling, attempting to keep his team in the game. He finished 22 of 35, 273 yards and 1 touchdown, and he had 33 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. He did lose 2 fumbles, though. He was pressured on 51% of his dropbacks, the highest pressure rate in a single game in his career. And also, Gallup did pretty well considering, he had a 49-yard touchdown. He finished 3 of 81 and 1 touchdown. There was 3 receivers that were greater than 50 yards, so he spread it out. It was him, Hearns, and Beasley, so that was nice. Beasley had a couple of nice grabs. We'll see a couple of highlights from that. But other than that, the defensive front just did not get much pressure on Smith. Lawrence and company was definitely put at bay. Their D is still the only team in the NFL who hasn't allowed more than 24 points in a game this season. So that's pretty impressive. But wow. How about the fact that Dallas misses the game-tying field goal due to a penalty that backed them up and backed up the kick? So that was a huge, crucial mistake, and it would have put them in overtime had he made it. But that penalty caused the kick to become longer, and he did not make it. So big mistakes in this game for Dallas, and kudos for sure to the Redskins. Defensively, just dominant. They did acquire, I'm sure y'all know already, Amari Cooper in a trade, so we should see if this helps them moving forward, but they definitely need to, minimize turnovers and mistakes, and, they'll be okay, I guess. Next game, Rams versus 49ers. The Rams are 7-0 for the first time since 1985. That's so exciting. I'm happy for these guys. Honestly, I like this squad. They had a beautifully balanced run and pass attack against a banged-up 49ers secondary. Fresh off his first career 200-yard rushing game last week, the Rams running back made more history on Sunday. Gurley scored 3 more touchdowns to up his season total to 14. He's tied for the most through 7 games in NFL history. It was the 10th consecutive regular season game in which Gurley has tallied a touchdown, and his 3rd game this season in which he scored at least 3 touchdowns. Gurley is on pace for 32 total touchdowns for the season, 1 more than the record set by the Chargers running back LaDainian Tomlinson in 2006. In an era flush with dual threat passing catchbacks, Gurley has stood out over the past 2 seasons as the most consistent and dominant, and that extends to his end zone prowess. He gets in there. Very impressive performance by Gurley. He continues to just like wow me each week. Cooks had a nice contested touchdown catch. We'll get a highlight of that. Aaron Donald, what a dominant force. Another monster defensive performance. Strip fumble and recovery, 4 sacks, 2 interceptions by the secondary, which Hill being one of them. He kind of redeemed himself a little bit because he's been kind of exposed lately. And he had a nice interception. Season high 4 takeaways for their defense. So very impressive performance all around for the Rams. Beathard just struggled with consistency. Too many turnovers by the 49ers, period. Now that they are now the league's worst with minus 15 in the turnover margin. The 49ers defense couldn't cover explosive wide receivers down the field, giving up huge plays. Sherman and Jimmy Ward being out definitely made a difference. Breida, Colbert, and Foster all left with injuries. So, like I said, 49ers are super banged up, and there was just no shot against a very powerful Rams team all across the board. Chiefs versus Bengals, Sunday Night Football. I thought it was going to be a more exciting game than this. I can't lie. I'm kind of disappointed in the Bengals, but love to see the Chiefs go off. The most entertaining. I think Patrick Mahomes is honestly like my favorite player to watch this year outside, of course, my Saints and everything. Just super entertaining. 28 of 39, 358 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, and he also ran for 45 yards. He was 18 of 23, 233 yards, 3 touchdowns, in just the first half alone. Crazy. Mahomes to Watkins' 51-yard grab to start the second half was impressive. He is leading the league with 22 touchdown passes, passing Hall of Fame Kurt Warner with 21 for the most passing touchdowns in a player's first 8 career games since 1970. Crazy. He's another one. Each week he's breaking records. Another thing, youngest player in NFL history with 6 consecutive 300-yard passing games. The Chief offense has so many weapons that like no receiver even gained over 95 this game. But yet Mahomes threw for 350 yards. 4 receivers were over 50 yards. Casey racked up 319 total yards on 5 drives in the first half. It's the most since 2016. And a season high 551 total yards for the game, which is the most since 2004. So this offense is off and clicking and on fire. I mean, every week they're breaking things. Kareem Hunt with another great game. He had 3 scrimmage touchdowns, tied a career high. He was breaking tackles. He had a nice hurdling play. He finished 20 carries, 141 yards. Kareem Hunt leads the NFL this season with 31 forced missed tackles on rushes, 8 more than any other person. He's definitely great with yards after contact for sure, and making people miss. Spencer Ware, LSU, also in there making an impact. He had 8 rushes, 59 yards, and 3 receptions, 30 yards. So very impressive duo going on there. The defense also showed up this game as they shut out A.J. Green in the second half completely. There was no word of A.J. Green in the second half. Very impressive. They held them to 250 yards. Scandrick and Fuller, surprisingly Scandrick, because we know he's been a struggle and he was an acquired person, held Green to 7 receptions on 14 targets. Jones and D. Ford both with a sack, Ford with the forced fumble, Ragland, Hitchens, and O'Daniel at the helm of their defense doing great. Casey has allowed just 15 first downs and 4.4 yards per play on Sunday night. A season best, showing that undoubtedly started up front. A competitive Chiefs defense is the AFC's worst nightmare. If Sunday night was any indication, it has already arrived, and just in time for Halloween. Really though, like, their defense showing up is critical because they're going to be unstoppable if this defense continues to play like they did this game for sure. Definitely a team that's going to, people were saying, oh, well, they're not balanced. They're offensive firehouse, power, whatever, but defense is shaky. No, like if they've been kind of showing lately, they're showing up. And if it stays this way, watch out. As far as Cincinnati goes, they were just underwhelmed in every facet of the game this game. Bengals defense struggled big time. They had no answer for Tyreek Hill or any of their weapons, period. Where has the Bengals defense gone? Like, the Bengals have given up at least 480 yards in 3 of their last 4 games, and they could not stop the Chiefs offense all night, period. Like, in no phase. It was a rough night for Dalton in the offense as well, as they went up against the defense that was ranked in the bottom half of the NFL. He threw a pick six and many inaccurate throws. There was no running game. AJ Green still finished 6 receptions with 110 yards before the half, but he only had 7 yards in the second half. Crazy. The Bengals mustered just 235 total yards against the Chiefs defense, which hadn't allowed fewer than 385 yards in its previous 6 games. So definitely a turn of the tables there. Falcons versus Giants, next game. Monday Night Football. Gotta love it. Close game. Beckham was record-performing, situation for him. Beckham makes the fastest to 5,000 receiving yards since 1970. He did it in 54 games, which ironically, the last person who did it in 56 games was Julio Jones, which he played, in this game. So that was pretty interesting. He also set a franchise record with his 23rd career 100-yard game. Eli Manning surprisingly showed up and played very well. 27 of 38, 399 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions, and still ended up losing. That's what I'm really upset about, because he finally showed up and they still couldn't win. But a key difference, I think, is Saquon Barkley was somewhat in check. He had 94 total yards and a rushing touchdown, which 94 total yards is not much for him considering he receives and rushes, So they quieted him for sure. Odell Beckham, however, was 8 receptions, 143 yards and a touchdown. Sterling Shepard had 5 receptions, 167 yards. This is the first pair with 100-plus yards together since 2014 for the Giants. Janoris Jenkins had a forced fumble and Apple on the recovery. So a hopeful showing for the Giants. I think, they might have lost, but I think it's a hopeful showing that maybe there's some spark happening here at this point. They even say they don't feel like a 1-6 team, that they're very optimistic. So we'll see going forward. But the Falcons, Matt Ryan was just on it. He was 31 of 39, 379 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. He now has 300-plus passing yards in 3 straight games. Julio Jones, 9 receptions, 104 yards. Now 7 consecutive games without a touchdown, though. And he lost a fumble. What's going on with Julio Jones, guys? Marvin Hall showing up big with 3 receptions, 63 yards, and a touchdown. Coleman, 82 total yards and a rushing touchdown. Honestly, the struggling Atlanta defense that's been struggling managed, like I said, to hold Barkley to less than 100 total yards on the day. And that's the first team to hold Barkley to less than 100 total yards this year so far. So very impressive performance for a banged up Atlanta defense. And I think that's honestly what the difference in this game was. So that wraps up each game of the week for week 7. So now we're going to go into the best individual performances and team performances in week 7. So best individual performances at quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. He was 28 of 39, 358 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, rushed for 45 yards. He leads the league with 22 touchdown passes, most in his first 8 games in NFL history. Matt Ryan, 31 of 39, 379 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and now has 300-plus passing yards in 3 straight games. Phillip Rivers, 19 of 26, 306 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Drew Brees, 500th career touchdown pass, and only quarterback left with no interceptions through week 7. Very impressive. Andrew Luck, 17 of 23, 156 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Cam Newton with the late 4th quarter comeback win, 25 of 39, 269 yards, 2 touchdowns, and rushed for 49 yards. Matt Stafford played mistake-free football, which is key for him. He was 18 of 22, 217 yards, and 2 touchdowns. At the wide receiver position, Emmanuel Sanders, 6 receptions, 102 yards, 1 touchdown, and a throwing touchdown. He's the 3rd player this season to do that at the receiver position. Trey Burton, 9 receptions, 126 yards, 1 touchdown. He definitely put on a show. Adam Thielen, 9 receptions, 110 yards, 7th straight game with greater than 100 yards. Josh Gordon, 4 receptions, 100 yards, critical gains and conversions that game. Tyrell Williams, also 4 receptions, 118 yards, 1 touchdown, caught all 4 of his targets, and has 3 receiving touchdowns in the last 2 games. So he's on fire right now. OBJ, 8 receptions, 143 yards, 1 touchdown. Sterling Shepard, 5 receptions, 167 yards. Like I mentioned before, they're the first pair with 100-plus yards for the Giants since 2014. Zach Ertz with a huge showing, 9 receptions, 138 yards. He has 57 receptions in 7 games, which is the most through 7 games by a tight end in NFL history. So very impressive for him. John Brown also had a good game, 7 receptions, 134 yards, and a touchdown. At running back, we have Todd Gurley, 3 touchdowns, 14 season total now. And he's tying the NFL record through 7 games. Kerryon Johnson, 21 touches, 179 yards as a rookie, doing really well. Kareem Hunt with 3 scrimmage touchdowns, tied his career high. Like we mentioned, Kareem Hunt leads the NFL this season with 31 forced missed tackles on rushes, which is 8 more than anybody else below him. Dion Lewis with a great game, 13 carries, 91 rushing yards, and 6 receptions for 64 receiving yards, 155 total yards for the day. Marlon Mack, 19 rushes for 126 yards and a touchdown, 159 total yards, which is the most by a Colts running back since 2011. Lamar Miller, 22 rushes for 100 yards, 1 touchdown. Welcome back to him. At the defensive back position, I have Mike Mitchell with a strip fumble, 2 pass defended, 1 47-yard interception, and 7 tackles. I have Chris Harris, Tyrann Mathieu, Patrick Peterson, LSU. I have Jones, P-Chung, and Vanoy with the New England Patriots. Had a great game. Combined, they had 2 interceptions. Noy had 12 total tackles with 1 tackle for a loss. Chung had 14 total tackles. They just went off together. DJ Swearinger and Josh Norman had great games, 7 total tackles, 1 tackle for a loss, 1 forced fumble and recovery, and 10 total tackles and a forced fumble for Norman. Very great game performance by those 2. Defensive tackle, defensive end position, Aaron Donald, of course, 4 sacks, career high, doubled his season sack total to 8. He has 9 tackles on this game. Payne and Allen being ruthless in the interior. Danny Trevathan had a good game. Jadeveon Clowney had 1 fumble recovery, 7 tackles, and 2 sacks. Ricky Jean-Francois, LSU, definitely single-handedly defeated the Miami offensive line, splitting double coverage, 2 sacks. At the linebacker position, we have Von Miller, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, pressures probably in the double digits. Darius Leonard, the rookie, again coming back with 12 tackles and a fumble recovery. Bradley Chubb with 2 sacks and a forced fumble. Todd Davis led the team in tackles and had a pick 6. First career interception and defensive touchdown. Very impressive performance for Todd Davis. Whitney Marcellus, 4 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, and a strip sack. Zach Cunningham led the team in tackles with 8 and a forced fumble. Kerrigan with 9 total tackles, 2 sacks, and a pass defended. And Melvin Ingram. At special teams, we definitely have Patterson's 95-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. We have Dante Hightower's blocked punt, which led to Vanoy's touchdown, scoop and score touchdown. We have Chandler Cannizzaro with a 59-yard field goal to win the game in overtime. That's the longest game-winning field goal in overtime since 1974, so that was huge. And Tavecchio with a 56-yard field goal was the longest by a player in his first game with a new team. He also hit from 40 and 50 that day. So coming in for Bryant, very impressive showing. As far as best teams offensively for the Week 7, I have Chiefs, Chargers, Lions, Rams, and Falcons. Best defenses that showed up this week were the Vikings, Texans, Colts, Patriots, Redskins, Rams, and the Chiefs. Look out for those. Best rookie performances in Week 7, Darius Leonard, 12 tackles, fumble recovery. Kerryon Johnson, 21 touches, 179 yards. Philip Lindsay now has 75-plus scrimmage yards in 5 of his last 7 career games. Bradley Chubb was also a great rookie performance this week. Dorian O'Daniel and Lamar Jackson with his first rushing touchdown. So that's all for best individual performances of Week 7 and best team performances. We are going to get now into the most athletic plays of Week 7. Here's a clip.
Players have been affected by that. Here's a little toss to Sanders, going to throw it. Diving catch for the touchdown to Sutton. What a play. Almost overthrows Sutton, but Sutton's one of those guys. He's at 6'4", and he's able to stretch out and make a heck of a play. Blitz coming. Pass is picked off. Harris. Chris Harris got a lane to the end zone for the touchdown. Second of the game for this Denver defense. Keenum, a little pump fake, and now picked. What a grab by the great Patrick Peterson. He was overthrown, and that is interception number 2 for number 21.
Well, once Sanders releases and goes because of the high hit to me, and there was, like you said, Troy, helmet contact.
Hey, Von Miller, make another play, why don't you? Another takeaway for this Denver defense, and 58 is right in the middle of all of it.
This time he gets over on Andre Smith. He's working over Humphreys earlier in the game, and he gets on Smith's side and goes right around him. Just no opportunity whatsoever for Josh Rosen. He's back there so fast and around those tackles with Chubb and Miller.
3rd down and 4. Rosen steps through the pressure. Ball is knocked out. Still loose. Recovered by Denver. Was he in bounds? Knocked out by Von Miller. And here's Miller.
Yeah, the hustle of Von Miller and then going after him and being able to...
Number 34. This is Lewis. Lewis with running room up the middle. Across midfield, inside the 45, inside the 35. What a run by Dion Lewis. Doesn't break through. There's an arm tackle there that he gets through. Here he spins out. The Chargers are spending so much time. 3 defenders there trying to get the ball out. He goes down, and then he brings it. Has time. Sideline throw, and that is caught at the 45-yard line by Tyrell Williams. Well, we touched in the open about the trust that Rivers is starting to develop with these receivers and throwing the ball upfield. Excellent coverage by the Titans. You're in perfect position. Adoree Jackson is staying on top of it. Back shoulder throw. Williams trusts him. Rivers trusts it. Coming back.
The Pats. Trubisky spins the other way. Looks. Trubisky will run. Trubisky in for the touchdown. Warner as well. The 6-year veteran formerly with Carolina and Philadelphia. From the 5, Patterson. Patterson. He's got track level speed. Patterson is gone. 95 yards. Cordero Patterson. Touchdown.
Jackson got an interception earlier this year against Miami. Working against Bellamy here, and he's just going to beat him to the ball.
Wow.
And just rip it out of Bellamy's hands.
Daddy Mark.
Pretty good list.
Trubisky throws it deep. Picked off. Jonathan Jones with the interception. Trubisky gives it away. Jones with a spectacular pick.
That's a one-handed grab as he goes right between the hands of Anthony Miller. Ball is underthrown by Trubisky, or this would have been a touchdown. What a grab. Defensive backs are taught when the receiver reaches, you reach.
The feisty Brady on 4th down. Lays it out there. It's caught. Josh Gordon goes upstairs and loses his helmet.
What's unique about Gordon is his ability to catch the ball away from his body with his hands. Going up over the top to make this grab, and the confidence that Brady now has in him as they beat Kyle Fuller for that 4th down conversion.
It's still about 4 or 5 yards to get into Hauschka's range. Anderson slinging it up to center. It is picked. Mike Mitchell. Mitchell still on his feet. Inside Buffalo territory, and they will have time left. 13 remaining. Murphy finally runs him out of bounds after a 47-yard return.
Mike Mitchell reading the mail of Kelvin Benjamin absolutely plays it perfectly. He was expecting them to take a shot as well, but watch the break on the ball. How he explodes out of his break, and he beats Benjamin to the reception point. Outstanding. Boy, had a heck of a game last week, a physical game, and then 2 huge impact plays.
Watson's looking that way, taking a shot for Hopkins. What a catch! Hopkins with one hand.
he's battling the right arm of DeAndre Hopkins. He's trying to impede him a little bit. Their arms are locked up. And yes, maybe DeAndre Hopkins muscles him a little bit, but he's so strong with even just one.
Here in Jacksonville.
Many times, if it's split there, you're expecting an outside release, so you're shaded a little bit outside. And DeAndre Hopkins, in our meeting with
Stafford is going to go to Johnson on the other side. Johnson looking for first down and running into Kiko Alonso, and still maintains his balance before field.
Wentz looking to throw, pump fake, and now he fires downfield, and it is Jeffrey who makes the catch. A spectacular catch by Jeffrey with Bradbury defending for an Eagles first down.
This is a standard. The defensive back doesn't see the ball. The receiver does. Stop and go. Bradbury's got his back to it, never sees the ball at all.
Well, they just totally gotten away from the run game. And that's intercepted on a tip ball by Harrison Smith. Down the sideline, inside the 15, and dropped inside the 10. Fingertips and into the hands of the All-Pro Harrison Smith.
So we talk about receivers knowing each other. Let's talk about a cornerback and safety and how important they know each other. Xavier Rhodes knows he has Harrison Smith over the top, is able to sink underneath, not jump up on any route underneath.
From the 41 on first down, Wentz steps up and throws. This time it's Ertz who makes the catch along the far sideline.
To climb the pocket. The throw was excellent, but again, Mike Adams finds the ball.
Mayfield with time, and he throws. Landry with a diving grab. And he is hit for the touchdown.
It is a touchdown. Watch him catch this ball. This is a completion. And then he's on the ground. He reaches out. Touchdown. That is some savvy stuff by Jarvis Landry. What a fantastic heads-up play by the receiver. Obviously, nobody touches him. He's not down. Touchdown.
Ball comes out. It's all simultaneous, incomplete pass.
There's a pass. Jameis Winston completes it down to the 2-yard line to O.J. Howard. What a catch by O.J. Howard.
To the quarterback, so he can't see the ball. Just throw it. You know what your guy can do. And Jameis Winston told us on Friday, I don't care what the matchups are in any game.
From the 47 of New Orleans. Reopen. Breeze connects. Traquan Smith. It took him a while to find him, but he's inside the 30 of the Ravens.
Great job rolling to his left. Gets enough on it. They lose Traquan Smith. God, it looks like that right foot might have been on the white at the beginning.
Pushed right. There we go. He gets it off. Did it hook in? It's good! And the ball off the Hunt. And a lot of traffic, and then somehow the ball winds up back in Hunt's hands. And he goes all the way down to the 5-yard line. Breaks out of a Dre Kirkpatrick tackle. Looks like he'd be down for sure. Leaps over Michael Johnson. What a play.
Oh, what a show. Kirkpatrick has him dead, has him wrapped up. The ball spun him completely around. Geno Atkins right there. Everybody relaxes, and the show goes on for Kareem Hunt. That may have been one of the best runs we've seen all year.
Looking back at week 7, like, as always, thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for Rocky's recap of week 8 in the NFL next week. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, tell me what you think. Thanks. Have a good day.